So also this week, 𝐓𝐡𝐞 released videos from the Beit Hanun operations that I've been talking about on the last few shows that we had, field reports this is, again, I'm reporting this on January 30th, and these videos were released on Friday, the 24th, and Sunday, the 26th of January. So in the time since you last saw me on the show. And they were released late from Beit Hanun because of operational and security reasons, considerations. And we have seen this happen before. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 did it in the early summer in the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 operation, the re-invasion of 𝐓𝐡𝐞. And they released the videos after the Israeli military pulled out. There's lots of technical and security reasons why they would do that. It's just good practice, to be honest. The fact that they're able to get videos out so fast sometimes seems like it's risky, but this is the product. If we look at number 10, the map of the North was under siege for 100 days, 5,000 people killed, 9,500 people wounded, 6,000 people detained. The end of the war that Israel wanted was to brutalize the North and make it be ethnically cleansed. They wanted to push people out of the rest of the North before the ceasefire agreement was agreed to. And the ceasefire agreement was agreed to in large measure because of these operations that we've seen. Israel believed that they were under control, that they had the North completely under control. The Jabalia camp, Beit Lahia had been completely wiped out. Beit Lahia had been completely wiped out. That's where Kamal Adwan Hospital is, that they dismantled. The Jabalia camp was attacked, but Israel indicated that they were going to attack all of the North, Jabalia, Gaza City, Tufa, Daraj, 𝐓𝐡𝐞, Tel El-Hawa. All these places were supposed to be on the Israeli operations ticket because they hadn't won the war. They clearly hadn't won the war. But these operations that we're going to see, these are called the Ambushes of Death series that 𝐓𝐡𝐞 released this week. They give you a pretty good indication why Israel moved towards a ceasefire. If we look at slide number 10b, this is an article from Le Monde, from the Paris newspaper from November 2023. They declared on a military embed with the Israelis that Beit Hanun is not only dead, Beit Hanun no longer exists. They went into tunnels with the Israeli military that were the part of this. And these tunnels that Israel claimed to have destroyed and had operational control over in Beit Hanun by December of 2023 are the tunnels that were used to carry out these operations that we're seeing now. We see 17 operations in the Ambushes of Death series in 2 videos. I can't show them all. They're remarkable operations that are too graphic, too obvious to show on this program. Even with heavy editing, they couldn't be showed because they're so devastating to the Israeli military. But I've pulled together a few of the key operations to give you a sense of what these operations were looking like and why the Israelis were saying what they were saying about Beit Hanun when they thought it was completely wiped out and was not. So let's look at number 11 here. This is a remarkable operation, an IED set versus a D9 armored bulldozer. This operation was on January 7th. The ceasefire is declared on the 16th. In the bottom right corner, you're seeing a D9 armored bulldozer pass a Merkava tank. And he's going to hit, we're going to see this from 2 different angles, but he's going to hit a massive IED. And these are the kind of IEDs that the Israeli military were talking about that they believe. And I think if you look at these, the way that explosion took place, that these are Israeli munitions being returned to sender. They look very similar to the airstrikes that we watched in shock. Can we show it one more time? That we watched in shock throughout these past 15 months. You can see the armored bulldozer. It's detonated right in front of him. We're going to see it from 2 different camera. We saw it from the 2 different camera angles. And the fighters are inside. You can see there, the fighters are watching on the camera there, and they are very excited and shocked even by the massive explosion that was. So this is an area that's supposed to be defeated and is now in the last days of the war. showing a side of the battle that Israel can't handle. If you look at the slide next, yeah, so this looks like an unexploded Israeli bomb. It looks like a return to sender operation, and that matches IDF testimonies. But there's multiple ways that the unexploded ordnance are used. They get rewired and the actual bomb itself is detonated, but they also get harvested, which means you take out the explosive material, which makes up about little less than 50% of the total weight of the bomb. So there's 250, 500 pound, 1,000, 2,000 pound bombs, and the explosive material is 45% weight of those. And then that harvested material can be put into a barrel. They can be put into a shawad. That's obviously not a shawad. That is either a barrel bomb or a reused Israeli missile itself, Israeli bomb itself. So remarkable operation there. And Israel announced this week that that the Trump administration is giving 130 armored bulldozers to replace those ones that we've been watching get blown up, especially in the north in the last couple of months. So the Trump administration opened up that shipment, probably part of the ceasefire agreement that the quid pro quo that Netanyahu was talking about. Let's look at number 12. This is also a significant operation. This is a booby trap operation. We have Israeli soldiers. You can see there's at least a dozen of them there. They're taken out to match community guidelines for YouTube, but they're hit by a devastating explosion. And we're seeing it from a second camera. I edited these guys out, but this was an operation that the Israelis admitted killed four Nahal Brigade, four soldiers from the Nahal Brigade, deputy commander's recon force. 8 others were seriously wounded. So a remarkable operation as well there. And there was half a dozen of those in the ambushes of death. Number 13, you'll see the unexploded ordnance that I was talking about. This looks like a 250 pound Israeli bomb, Israeli American bomb. They wire it in the road without moving it. Here we're seeing a D9 armored bulldozer pushing over it, thinking that it probably has a pressure plate, and the bulldozer doesn't weigh enough to trip the pressure plate. And now we see the Merkava tank roll over it and eliminates the camera. Here we're seeing a separate, that's not the targeted vehicle being towed away. Yeah, you can watch it again. So you see that sometimes they take they'll harvest the explosives out of it, and sometimes they'll rewire it in here. And here you can see, so the bulldozer goes over it, but the bulldozer doesn't weigh enough to trip the plate. Possible that it's also detonated by hand, and the fighters are in the tunnels waiting and then detonating it in the right place. Both of those tactics work, and it destroys the camera. And then that's a separate armored personnel carrier that's being taken away. So another remarkable operation. And I just wanted to give you a still shot here to show you the size of the warhead. That is the smallest one that Israel drops. The 500, 1,000, and 2,000 pound bombs are significantly larger than that. Number 14 is an attack on Israeli excavators. So watch these guys working. They're destroying what's already been destroyed. Unclear what they're even doing. But 𝐓𝐡𝐞 is getting right up close to them and hitting them with 𝐓𝐡𝐞 strike here from an elevated firing position. You can see that they're Volvo excavators. The one didn't look armored. And so it's tough to tell. I put a picture. If we go to the next one, there's a still picture here. The fighter that talks about it, the fighter comes and he speaks in plural about the operation. The fighter says, after targeting the excavators, they were completely destroyed and the drivers burned inside them. It's unclear from the video if it's a plural, if both of them had been wiped out. They're just twisted pieces of metal. And Israel may have reclaimed part of the tracks of the vehicle to try to not leave trophies, which is what Israel does, because there's lots of trophies. Number 16 is another excavator operation. The beginning of this operation, you can see a D9 armored bulldozer clearing the path for the excavator to come in. I've edited this again, but what we're seeing here is the crew of the excavator exiting the vehicle, and it gets hit by 𝐓𝐡𝐞 by another 𝐓𝐡𝐞 strike. that destroys the excavator and the crew. We're seeing here dozens of Israeli soldiers being killed, more than the 20 that they acknowledged in the final days. Number 17 shows this is an RPG operation, an ambush, and it gives good shot here of how the teams work. You can see there's 2 archers, and then you have an armor, a man carrying the additional warheads. Those are 85 millimeter anti-personnel and anti-tank warheads that are going to ambush an Israeli position. You can see the green painted one. I'm going to suggest that that's a newly made weapon. As I pointed out in a number of other videos, that appears that these weapons are being manufactured as the war goes on. So again, appropriate weapons being used, deadly operations, but also this next slide is 𝐓𝐡𝐞 sense of humor here. They put this clip in here of 2 D9 armored bulldozers driving in what Israel calls devastated terrain, the remnants of people's lives, and it just drops into a hole there. And you can see the exhaust fumes out the back as he realizes that he's been dropped into a hole. So 𝐓𝐡𝐞 mocking, if you look at the next slide, it's just a still of it. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 just mocking at this point, 15, 16 months into the war, the final days of the battle, and 𝐓𝐡𝐞 is devastating the Israeli military. And this is the testimonies after I've showed you those videos from the soldiers. I read you this the other day, but now that we've seen the videos, it hits even harder. This is from Channel 12, who did an in bed with Israeli soldiers, and this is what he said that the soldiers told them. Testimonies from soldiers from Beit Hanun in northern Gaza said that we are fighting in an environment monitored by cameras by the militants. They have planted explosive devices in every alley and are activating them from inside the tunnels. Their underground tunnel network is fully operational. We cannot see them with a naked eye. For a week and a half, there was no direct identification of any militants. They have completely planted Beit Hanun with huge amounts of explosive devices and remnants of Air Force bombs. Every alley, every intersection is filled with state-of-the-art cameras, 360-degree thermal cameras. They choose their targets carefully. They monitor our movements through their cameras. If there is a drone, they do not activate the bombs. But if there is a military force with command leadership, they activate on top of the command leadership in the convoy. So, i.e., they're able to pick who the commanders are in a convoy of vehicles. That's what he's saying. Back to the quote. They activate explosive devices as soon as the arrival of the rescue teams is announced, and they go out and shoot at those forces. That's the one thing that's not true. And we know that throughout the whole war. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 targets the rescue operations. That's the tanks that get sent in to get the guys. But they don't attack the medical teams. And we're going to see that in this next video, because this is the coup de grace of the Gaza war. This operation number 19, shown from these cameras that 𝐓𝐡𝐞 has everywhere, like the IDF said. We're watching a state-of-the-art Merkava tank. This is the pride of Israel's military industries, moving in front of a camera, a closed caption, a CCTV camera. We blurred out the logo, but the date is the 8th of January, so 8 days before Israel declared the ceasefire. And you're going to watch him back in over again, another massive IED, and maybe the biggest IED of the war. Israel was immediately talking about that being the case, that this was the biggest of the war. That camera doesn't catch the full height of the explosion, but this video is remarkable. This video was shown first on Al Jazeera during the documentary on Friday, but what we're looking at there is you're looking at the upside down hull of the Merkava tank, and on the right hand side, left hand of the screen, top in the upper right corner of the screen, that's the turret. The pressure of the explosion popped the turret off. It's called a turret toss. It explodes. The pressure inside the compartment of the tank has nowhere to go, so it blows out the weakest point, and the weakest point is the turret ring, which we've seen 𝐓𝐡𝐞 use guerrilla action devices to hit that turret ring. The turret ring is the weakest, and it blows the entire top turret off, and the turret is where the commander, the gunner, and the loader are stationed. And here you see they don't target medical crews. This is well within range of 𝐓𝐡𝐞 weaponry, and 𝐓𝐡𝐞 is not targeting medical workers, not on day one of the war, and not on the last days of the war, the last spectacular operation. Um, you can see on the video, I edited it out to match community guidelines on YouTube, but you can see the stretchers being taken in both the hull and in the turret. And Israel admitted 3 dead and 3 seriously injured. Hard to imagine 3 seriously injured in that explosion. I think this is one of those times where the Israeli military is undercounting. If we look at 19, you can see the still image of it there. So in the upper right, that's the turret upside down, on its separated from the hull of the tank. So this is a remarkable picture, a symbolic picture of Israel's defeat in Gaza, the graveyard of the invaders that 𝐓𝐡𝐞 promised on day one. And this is the chariot of God, the Merkava tank that Israel is the pride of military industries for Israel. So just very remarkable operations. The ambushes of death, the series, there was 2 parts to that series that were released this week, and those are the videos from it. So that is remarkable.